Have you ever thought to yourself, I would love to travel? You see places on television and it looks amazing. It looks so beautiful. And you think, where is that? And you find out that it's in Iceland or that it's someplace far away, like in Africa or just on the other side of the continent. And you're thinking, this is so expensive, I can't afford it. You guys, I'm excited this week because I'm talking with someone who is all about traveling, and she's here to help us to understand what steps we can take to get ourselves the travel bug, to get that bug where we're able to affordably travel and see the world. You guys, I'm excited to bring to you today the creator of The Thought Card. She is an author, a blogger, as well as a podcaster. For 5 years, The Thought Card has been around. You guys, please welcome Danielle Desir to the show. Authentic Talks is all about authentic conversations. This show is all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and become your authentic self, then this is the podcast for you. And I am your host, Shantae. Welcome to the show. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get started.
I am super excited to have you here. Can you share with our audience a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So my name is Danielle Desir, and I am an author, a podcaster, and a blogger, and I focus on affordable travel and personal finance. So I found a creative way to combine my passions for travel and my passions for money. I've been running the Thought Card brand for the past 5 years. I actually celebrated my 5-year anniversary. And it's really just following my financial journey and some of my travels as well. But the whole point of the site is to really help folks make more informed financial decisions, to empower them to know how to save for travel, to go out there, see the world, but also take care of their financial responsibilities back at home as well. So I have paid $63,000 of student loan debt over the 4-year period. So I talk a lot about that. And now as a homeowner, I'm talking more about investing and home ownership.
Wow, I absolutely love it. And congratulations on 5 years and paying off the debt. We got to talk about all of that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now, you mentioned that you have a blog, and your blog is specifically about traveling. And can you share with me, why did you start your travel blog?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I felt that I had things to share with the world, but I didn't really see myself as a strong writer. So I come from a financial background. So my family is a family of accountants, and I've always seen myself as numbers driven and logical in that way. But for some reason, I was drawn to blogging, and I started the blog as a lifestyle blog. I knew it was going to be sharing my thoughts, which is why I called it The Thought Card. But I didn't really know where it would take me. It really spun off of this trip that I took to Paris and London and Amsterdam with my cousins, and I started writing about that trip. But while I was blogging, I actually started to share about my student loan journey, about how I was finding all of these creative ways to pay down my debt. And I was even sharing on a quarterly basis how much I was paying off. So I was being very transparent. And I realized that my audience, my very tiny audience at the time, was really enjoying that. And they totally understood and they resonated with them because they also had student loan debt. And I decided that, you know what, instead of me having 2 different websites or dimming my light on one part of my life, let me just illuminate and let me just share both of my travels and how I'm doing that, and also how I'm paying off student loan debt. So that's really where it came together. And I realized that, I've always had a passion for personal finance. Like my mom taught me how to start saving and investing. I started my own retirement account at the age of 15. So personal finance was something that was really big in my household. So I knew that I could just go out and share it. And in the beginning, to be honest, people didn't really understand why I was talking about money, even though I was a travel blogger, because it was seemed very separate. Like travel is travel, and money and personal finance is money and personal finance, two separate buckets. But now at the 5 year mark, people see that they're intertwined. You need money to travel and to do other things in your life. So I have seen a lot of growth in my brand, and that's really how it all started.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to travel one day and do different things. What was one of the first things that you did when you knew that you had booked that trip?
In terms of my own story is I actually grew up traveling a lot. So my family is from Haiti, which is a small island in the Caribbean. And every single summer, I was so fortunate enough where my mom would actually send me to Haiti to live with my grandparents for the entire summer. So I grew up going to a different country every single year between the ages of 3 and like 15. So I learned the language, I learned the culture, I learned, just so much. I raised animals. Like I was just a native every single summer to my small town in Haiti. So that's why I say that travel has always played a big role in my life, because I would always go back home. But I think for me, the pivotal time in my life when I realized that, travel is I want it to be a bigger deal than I'm making it out to be, is when I had this desire to travel to Paris on a study abroad opportunity in college. And I was so excited, and Paris had always been the number one place that I wanted to visit. And I thought about it all the time, but I realized that my financial aid package wasn't going to cover it. And I went to my mom at the time and I said, Mom, I worked really hard in high school to get all these scholarships. I've been saving a lot of money. I've been, doing everything I could, but this financial aid package is not going to cover the study abroad opportunity. And I still want to go. Is there any way that you could help? And she offered to do what she could. But behind the scenes, what was happening is that we were in the recession at the time. So we were actually losing our home. And I knew that. And I just felt so bad about asking her to take money away from the household to fund this luxurious, gallivanting in Paris, when I know that we couldn't keep the lights on and we were about to lose everything. But that was the moment in my life, that particular moment when I decided, you know what, I'm not going to go to Paris for that summer, was when I made a promise to myself that I would figure out a way to afford travel. So I think if you have a desire to do anything in your life, a lot of times the people who are the most motivated have a pivotal moment that they realize that I want to change. I need to change. I don't know how, but I will figure it out. And that promise has, in the last 6, 7 years, led me to over 27 countries now. But it was because I set the intention, and it came out of like a negative experience, right? Like I wanted to do something, I couldn't afford it. And that has changed my life. And even though, like, I feel like, let's say if at the time I could afford it and it was easy to me, I don't know if I would appreciate it as much as I do now. So I would say if you want to travel, if you truly want to travel, and there are things that are holding you back, they're limiting beliefs, you can surely start small. You do not have to hop on a plane and go halfway across the world to travel. You can go to a nearby local, like a nearby city in your state. And especially now that we're, in the pandemic times and things are changing, I don't see air travel being something that a lot of people are going to be, signing up to do right now. So these are just the small shifts, I think, that if you just really commit to and be intentional and say to yourself that this is something I want to do, you will find a way.
Wow, I think I need to find a way. How do you How do you manage the expenses?
Yeah. So I would say before I even think about the expense of travel, I think more about saving for travel. And that, I think, is what really has allowed me to really explore the world. Having the intention is the first piece. Like deciding that I'm going to start traveling. That's a big step, and that's step number one. But now you need to follow up with action. You need to take the actual steps. So I do have a brand new book called Affording Travel: Saving Strategies for Financially Savvy Travelers. And in that book, I pull back the curtain and I share step by step how to actually save for travel and include travel as a line item in your budget, even if you don't have a lot of money right now. But to answer your question, one of the simple things, I'll say two things that you can do right now to be like, okay, I want to start traveling. And how am I going to be able to afford it? Is number one, creating a travel fund, which is a separate bank account devoted solely to your travel savings. And the reason why I believe that this is number one, the most important thing that you can do right now, is because it doesn't cost you much money, especially if you bank with an online bank like Ally Bank or Capital One 360. Number two, you're giving yourself a fighting chance by not having all of your money commingled together. So if you have your mortgage, your, insurance, and all of these bills coming all from the same pot, and you don't have a system in place, it's going to be nearly impossible to move forward on your financial goals. So what I've done is that I actually create multiple, and I have actually multiple bank accounts just so that I could separate and automate my savings. The second thing that I would do once you have a travel fund and you have your bank account devoted to travel, which is great, I would say to begin to think of travel as a bill. So treat it like a recurring bill, like any other expense that you spend for the month, and add it into your budget. And I know that a lot of people don't really resonate with the word budget, but the truth is that a budget is it's simply just a spending plan. And guess who directs, the spending? Guess who's the one who's in charge of figuring out where their money's going to go? You. So I actually see a budget as something that's very empowering. I think of it as like the Google Maps of my money. It allows me to avoid potholes, take shortcuts if need be, and get to my destination, which is my goal, as quickly as possible. But I've realized that if I don't think of travel as a bill that needs to get paid, like my mortgage, like my car insurance, like my gym membership, then it's not going to be a priority and it's going to end up falling by the wayside. So those are the two things I'd recommend. Having a travel fund, thinking of it as a recurring bill, that can get you started to really start to save for travel.
Wow, I love it. I need to do that right away. What, did it take a long time to get a passport?
It did not take a long time to get a passport. It's so funny because last year, before everything went down, I had planned a trip to China. And my passport was fine, but my fiance's passport was expiring. And I took that as a good opportunity to time to see how long it would actually take. And we did not use you could actually expedite your passport to do it quickly if you have a trip coming up. But I think it took between 3 to 4 weeks to actually from taking the photo that you need to include into the package, filling out the form, sending it with the check, and getting the passport at hand took between 3 to 4 weeks. So it doesn't take a long time, and it's actually a lot easier than it sounds.
So for someone like myself, you said it doesn't take long. So if I knew that I wanted to travel next year, would I need to wait until next year to get it, or would I start that process now?
You can start that process right now, as early as possible. I highly recommend doing that because you just never know what interesting opportunities might come your way. So one of the things that I'm really big on is finding cheap flights. And that's really how I've been able to travel to so many places. I couple my finances with cheap flights. So my budget is limited for travel, right? I don't have endless funds to travel. So I spend it really wisely. So I'm always on the lookout for cheap flights. So I would say if you have a desire to travel, work on getting your passport ASAP. And when you decide to travel, either now or next year, you'll have all your ducks in a row. So nothing is going to stand in your way.
That's good advice. I'm going to take that. And would I need travel insurance or anything like that if I'm going to travel?
I would say that a lot of people in travel space recommend it. It's interesting because I think the times are changing right now because of the pandemic. So I would say let's say you're taking a flight, to definitely back up your flight purchase with travel insurance. So after you finish buying you're about to hit send on the payment, you'll usually get prompted with a request like, do you want to spend $2 on this flight protection, right? So I would definitely recommend that, especially because things are changing so rapidly. But travel insurance is a good idea. It really just prevents you from having to foot the bill if something extraordinary happens while you're out traveling. And a lot of times when you're traveling, like your US insurance might not cover certain things. So having traveler's insurance, it's not that expensive. It's something that you could easily do. But I wouldn't say that has to be something that you stress about when planning your trip. There has been plenty of trips that I've been on that I had no travel insurance and I was totally fine. But for like example, my China trip, I was going really, really far. I decided to get travel insurance. So I think it's all about personal preference and if you want to be more protected, to have that. So I think it's all depends on what you need.
And you're an author.
I am.
An
Yes.
author. Yay. I know that's exciting. Can you share with me what that was like? What was the process like writing your book?
Yes, I realized that I actually want to be a writer. Like I want to be known as an author. And it took again a long time for me to realize that this is a passion of mine. And actually I was talking to my fiance one day and he actually told me like, this is what you really want in life, right? Like you clearly everything you do is doing this. Like it's leading to one path. And that just proves to me that sometimes you are so close to things that you don't realize like what it really means to you. And again, 5 years ago, I started my blog with all these limiting beliefs. I'm not a writer. I'm not a creative person, but I just pushed through. But when it came to writing my book, I've been wanting to write a book for years now. Like I wanted to start in 2016. I slept on the idea. I let analysis paralysis hold me back. But in 2019, I started the year off and I said, I'm going to write a book. I don't care what it's going to take. I need to do it. And by the time I think I wanted to start writing a book in March or April, and a couple of weeks before my start date, I had no idea what I was going to write about, but there was an opportunity that I saw on Instagram where a small publishing house was looking for new authors to write different destination guides. So I applied and I said, you know what? I have tons of articles about Iceland on my blog. That's one of my favorite places to visit in the world. I've been there 3 times. I feel like I'm knowledgeable enough to write about Iceland. So I started writing an Iceland travel guide. So that was my first book. It's called Iceland Nature, Nurture, and Adventure. And it's really focused on sharing how to plan adventurous and affordable, because Iceland's very expensive, and a culturally enriching trip to Iceland. And I really tackle the perspective, sharing my perspective as a Black woman. So I do share what it's like traveling to Iceland as a Black woman. So that was my first book. And after the success of that book, I realized, you know what, I want to do more. So I'm actually now writing my 3rd book.
That's awesome.
It's definitely something that I just, I had an idea. I slept on it for years. I made a commitment to myself. And now a year later, I am writing more books.
You're comfortable blogging and writing these articles. Is there a difference, you think, between the two? And like, is it coming from a different
place? Yeah, that's an amazing question, and something that I'm encouraging more bloggers to write books now, because as a blogger, I feel that you have all of the skills necessary to write a book. Like you're used to taking your thoughts and putting them on paper, organizing them in a way that adds value to your readers. Now, there are a lot of nuances when it comes to writing a book, like the formatting of it, or just generally like how you convey your idea. So it's definitely more fine tuning when it comes to a book versus like a blog. You can skim through things, but when you skim through things in a book, you leave your reader with questions. And especially if you're writing a nonfiction book, the whole point of the book is to help them solve a problem or have a transformation. So there's more in-depthness that goes on to it. But I definitely do say if you're a blogger now, you can totally take the leap to become an author. And I think for me, I actually wrote my first book as a blogger, like, because I didn't know the nuances of what being a quote unquote author was like. So I wrote the book as a blogger. And then when I started getting the book edited and I started getting beta readers, which are people who would read the book before, it's published to give me ideas and feedback, that's when I learned more. Like, hey, you need to structure paragraphs this way, or this is unclear, or this is not really doing anything for me. Like, I learned so much through the feedback process. So that, I think you have to get your thoughts on paper first and see where you are. And based off of that, you'll hire folks, and put together a team of people who have done this before, who can help you to craft it and to fine tune it into what a book is. And for my first book, I was super lucky because the publisher gave me an outline. So I didn't have to come up with the outline. I just had to follow what they said for me to do. And I just did bullet point by bullet point because they already had like a format for how they wanted these books to go. But when I took the second leap, I self-published my second book, which is called Affording Travel, Saving Strategies for Financially Savvy Travelers. In that book, I had to really start semi from the beginning because I had to create an outline for myself, had to create a plan, I had to design the cover of the book. I did everything. Like, I was in charge of the entire process, which was very different. And the last thing I would say about this is the second book I wrote, Affording Travel, I have talked about saving for travel a lot on my blog, on my podcast. And I also did a lot of interviews as well with people on their podcasts about how I'm doing all these things. So I had a lot of reference material. Like, I had my own reference material, right? I would listen to my podcast episodes and be like, oh yes, that's genius. And write that in the book. So I had a lot of clues left. But the book I'm writing right now is different. It's actually a book about traveling with a full-time job and the how-tos to do it successfully. And I actually never talked about that extensively. I don't even think I at all, to be honest, on my blog or my pod, anywhere, honestly. So this is like a fresh, brand new project for me. And I'm realizing that, yes, it's a lot easier when you already have content out in the world. You've already thought through a lot of these things. But even if you've never talked about this topic before ever, if you follow an outline, if you create an outline for yourself, you answer critical questions of, the book planning process, it'll become so much easier for you to be able to just follow that plan you set out and then execute. So those are my thoughts and the things that I've learned from now writing 3 books.
That's good stuff. That's a goal of mine too. When I look at people's blogs, I'm like, this looks amazing. How do you keep it up? What would be a good strategy? How do you keep your blog up? It looks amazing. And I want to talk about your blog too, and some of the things that I've seen on it that I absolutely love. What is the strategy for keeping it up?
Yes. So I would say my lens is from having a full-time job. So I have a full-time job and I have a blog and a podcast and all of these other things that I do. So my goal as a content creator is to just create one new piece of content a week. I can't compete with people who do this full time, and I don't even try to do that. So all I can do is focus on what's going to make me feel good and what makes me feel productive and moves my mission and my brand forward. So I would encourage you to determine what you want to get done every week in your blog or your brand or your business and stick to that. Stick to the frequency that works best for you, that's not too overwhelming. The other thing I would say for me, and everyone's creative process is different, I'm the kind of person that I could sit down and write an article. It will take me, a while to sit down and just do it all in one sitting. but I rather do a little bit throughout the week. So if I feel inspired today, I might work on the intro and the outro. And then the next day, I might edit the photos. And then the day after that, I might come in and start, bullet pointing different things and fleshing it out. And by the end of the week, all I'm have to do is just do not quick read, I would say, but like a quick edit, read it a couple times, make sure it sounds good, and then hit send. So the finished product looks all put together, but at least for me personally, it's a process of just coming back to it, revisiting it often, adding pieces throughout the week. So that's how I'm able to meet my one piece of new content a week. Also, like I've been in the game for the last 5 years. So I have a lot of content. By creating one blog post a week over the course of 5 years, there's hundreds there. And that's the beauty of just being consistent, is if you create a pattern for yourself, a rhythm, a frequency of how much content you want to create, by the end of the year, you'll be so surprised. Even if you do one blog post a month, at the end of the year, you have 12 blog posts, which is still great. Like you're still offering lots of ideas and value to your readers. So those are some of the things that I do and think about moving forward.
That's awesome. You offer courses for people on your blog. What are the courses about?
Yes. So it's interesting because like we talked about earlier in the episode about budgeting, and I figured that, of course, I would love to create more courses on travel hacking and doing all of these advanced flight strategies and all these great things. But I realized that when it comes down to it, if you don't have a solid fundamental or a base to grow from, if your base is shaky, you're not going to be operating on all cylinders. You're not going to be optimizing. And it's really, really hard to go back and then try to go forward at the same time. So I created a budgeting course. It's called Back to Budgeting Basics, and it covers simple process of creating a budget for yourself that truly aligns with your financial goals. Again, like I mentioned, I'm not the kind of person that just creates a budget and then has it collect dust. No, my budget is a guide. It's a true guide, a true Google Maps for my money, where I go back to it often. It guides me, it helps me, and it's something that I set for myself. So if I want it to be self-serving, so I created this budgeting course to really guide folks through the step-by-step process that I use to create my budget for the month. And then I also have a smaller workshop. It's called a Setting Financial Goals Workshop. And the whole point of that is I understand, like, even before we go into the budget and we do all these numbers and tinkering around, setting your financial goals is key. Like we mentioned before, if you want to start to travel more, you need to set the intention. How do you set these intentions? In that workshop, I share how to set those financial goals, how to really commit to it, so that when you create a budget, you can add that in and it makes sense. And at the end of the year, you say that you accomplished what you said you wanted to do. So those two things, those two courses work hand in hand together. And then the third thing is the book, a foreign travel book. So if you know how to do your budget, great. Now, if you want to save more for travel, so I just kind of fine tune the process, take my buyer through the journey of really becoming this financially savvy traveler.
I'm so excited about talking to you. I cannot wait to use these things to help me to get my budget in order so I can start being a savvy traveler.
Yeah, I'm so excited. That's the beauty of like venturing into something new, is that there's endless possibilities and endless opportunities to grow from where you are right now. And a lot of these things I've learned through trial and error, painful trial and error. But on the other side, I have a system that works, that I feel confident in, and it just has changed my relationship with money to become more positive. I feel good about my relationship with money and just seeing money as an abundant resource that's all around me.
Absolutely. So you do take on clients one-on-one as well?
I do. It's something that I am introducing now is to work with folks who are looking to specifically want to travel more. So my focus is more on the travel and money aspects of it. But yes, I do offer one-on-one coaching.
That's nice. You have a podcast. Can you share with me what your podcast is all about?
Yes, my podcast is an offshoot of my blog. My podcast focuses again on empowering financially savvy travelers to really live life on their own terms. That's super important for me. And the three pillars we focus on is affording travel, paying off debt, and building wealth. And I invite lots of different types of money nerds or travelers to share their unique money story and their unique travel story. So we could talk about anything from planning your adult gap year, which is when you take a 1 year off of work to travel the world. Or we can talk about house sitting or, creating a side hustle. So anything travel and money related, we cover that on the podcast.
Oh, that is awesome. On what platforms can we find your podcast?
Absolutely. So yes, the Thought Card podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
I've actually tuned in. I love your voice. It's so calming.
Thank you.
You are.
I actually get that pretty often now.
Yeah, you're easy on the ears. Definitely easy on the ears. If people wanted to find you, what is the name of the website?
Sure. So you can head over to thoughtcard.com. Again, that's my affordable travel and personal finance blog. And if you want to connect with me on social media, I am at the Thought Card on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. And those are all of the places to connect with me.
How did you come up with that name, the Thought Card?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to share my thoughts with folks, and I knew that, stream of consciousness was really a big for me. So the Thought Card is really the place where I write down my notes. So for example, instead of having an index card of just random musings, I have the Thought Card blog and podcast. So that's how I created the brand.
I absolutely love it. So can you share with me the places in the world that you have not been, the top 5 that are on your list to visit within the next 5 years?
Oh, okay. That list is growing really large now because, we're all stuck home. I actually had a trip planned to go to Madrid, and I should be there. I should have been there today, to be honest, but
oh, wow.
That's okay. That's totally okay. So I would love to go to Madrid. I would love to go to Berlin, Germany. I would also, really high on my list is Japan, going to Tokyo and visiting a lot of the smaller cities. So that's number 3. Number 4, I would say South Africa sounds super exciting and really, really interesting and fun to me. And I've been having lots of thoughts. I've been wanting to go to Copenhagen in Denmark for a really long time. For me, I love visiting Europe. It's just so easy since I'm on the East Coast. So any place in Europe, it just has my name on it. I would love to visit. So those would be my top 5.
Nice. Some of the places you mentioned, I had never even thought of.
Yes. I mean, I love scrolling on Instagram. So Instagram is lots of inspiration. Pinterest has lots of inspiration as well. But for me, especially since I work full time, I just take a slow and steady approach. And again, at the end of, 5 years, you see how many places that you actually managed to go to. So I'm in no rush, but I know I will be able to visit all of those places.
Absolutely. You have all the tools that you need to make it happen. So that's what makes it totally great. One of the places that I've wanted to go was Dubai. And
that's on the list too. Yeah, for
sure. I seen this hotel that they built. They built it in the ocean and they built it up like literally the city or something. And it's over the ocean, and they made this street, and not just a regular street. I mean, an entire community with a hotel that's there on the water. And it's really one of the tallest hotels that's there in Dubai. I also seen something on Bora Bora. And I was like,
Oh, yes. Those villas on the water. Yes.
it looks amazing. I've seen it on TV. I have never traveled, Danielle, but I've traveled to all around the world from in my living room on my couch. I watch all those places.
Yeah, which means that you're well equipped for, the pandemic and, all of our self-quarantined. But I think that if you really do want to travel, what you can do is you can create a Pinterest board if you want to do it digitally, or if you want to print out some of these beautiful places that you want to visit and put it around your office space or anywhere that you can look at it from time to time. So like at work and my office, I had this beautiful backdrop of Bermuda. Bermuda is one of my favorite places.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's really great for visualization when you can actually see the places that you're going to and that you're working hard towards. So it's easy to get unmotivated, when you're doing a day-to-day grind, but having beautiful pictures that's really helping you to visualize what your goal is can be really, really powerful stuff. So take those pictures, put them on your wall, imagine you there, and I'm sure in no time you will get to visit.
Absolutely. I have a vision board now, and I don't know where this place is, but it looks beautiful. I cut it out and forgot to look to see where it was. I was
Perfect.
like, this is so pretty. I'm going to put this on my vision board. I guess I was telling myself I'm going somewhere.
Yes.
Not sure where yet. Danielle, what are you a collector? Like when you travel to different countries or different places, what is it that you collect?
Yes. So I'm an enthusiast. So I'm a beer enthusiast, and I actually really enjoy collecting beer cups. And when I travel, I try to bring back one of their specialty drinks or anything that's interesting that I enjoyed while there. So earlier this year, I went to London and I brought back gin. And I had, the entire time I was there, I was drinking gin, and I was like, this is the perfect thing to bring back home when I'm feeling, a little blue.
Yeah.
I do collect. And actually now that I'm doing more decorating in the house and I'm realizing, having all of, memories of the things that you've done while you were traveling is great to have on your phone, but having it around your house is also great as well. So I will, when we start traveling again, I will do more of like getting souvenirs so I could bring them back home and decorate the home.
Oh, I bet that's going to be beautiful when you're done. Having pictures of different places and blown up and put in beautiful frames, and where you can walk around your house and you're like, this is Madrid, the summer of 2022 or whatever,
Yes.
That's probably going to be so awesome. Now, as far as traveling within the United States, what are some of your favorite places to go here at home?
Yes, I love visiting San Francisco. I've been multiple times. It's such a big city, and there's just so many things to do. I also really like Orlando, and I think it's because I love Disney so much. So I try to go if I can. Yeah. I could try to go at least once a year. So I really do. And Orlando's really fun outside of the theme parks. So if you do go to Orlando, definitely venture off outside of the theme park scene. And I also really like Chicago. Chicago's really, again, a big city, really fun, lots of things to do. And I highly recommend those three places.
Right on. What do you think about road trips?
Road trips, I foresee being something that more people are going to be doing, especially because of the times. I'm actually thinking about doing a road trip myself. There's multiple road trips you could do depending on where you're starting from. But for me, I've been wanting to do New York to Cali for a really long time. Also, New York to Florida is also on the list. I've done smaller road trips to upstate New York since I live in Connecticut, or actually drove 8 hours to Quebec. That was really fun and interesting. So I am definitely a big fan of road trips, and I think it's how we're going to be traveling more.
That trip from New York to Cali is a serious road trip. That would be 4 days or something, unless you didn't stop very much.
I heard that. And, it's so funny because this year, a lot of us, we are not traveling. that much. So a lot of us have all these like unused vacation times that we need to use. A lot of us have like an expiration date on our time. And I've been thinking about like, if possible, to do a 2-week trip. I feel 2 weeks could be a good enough time if you have 4 days to go
Oh,
and 4
yeah.
days to drive back. But you, like for me, I would really want to savor every moment. Like I wouldn't want to be rushing past places that I actually want to see. So maybe that will be another, like maybe 2021 kind of experience, but definitely road trips are on the table and something that I'm considering for sure.
Yeah, I do love road trips. I live in Arizona and I drive to California very often because that's where I'm from, or not born, but that's where I lived for the majority of my life. And I have this idea in my head that I'm actually going to visit all 50 states. I've been to a lot of them, but I wanted to, this is something I've had where I'm like, before I leave this earth, I want to at least take a picture by every monument in each state within the United States, you know?
I love
So,
that. That's
so
wonderful.
we'll see how that works out. I'll start with the West Coast because, I'm a little bit ahead in the game,
Exactly. You're right there. You're right there. Exactly.
Yeah. But I got to get on that plane though. I'm so glad that you came on and talked with me. I really admire what you're doing.
Thank you.
Very smart young lady, very articulate, and your energy is amazing,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to see where you venture off to in the next year or several years from now.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to keep up with you and let you know. Not keep up with you like the Joneses, but like
keep me updated.
Yes, keep you updated to let you know, like, okay, I actually made it off of the United States soil, So yeah, the thought card, what you've created is freaking amazing. When can we expect that third book?
Ooh, you have all the great questions today. So I am hoping for mid-September for the third book.
This year?
This year, yeah, 2020.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm almost done. I'm like 60% done with the book. So I think by September it will be live.
Tell me when the first book dropped and when did the second book come out? Let's see and what time span did you do this?
Yeah, so I wrote my first book in March. I finished it in May 2019 and it came out in August 2019. And then I wrote my second book in November 2019 and it came out in April 2020. I'm right now working on my third book, May, and it should be out in September. So I try to do 1 to 2 books a year. That's the pace that I feel inspired to do right now. So we'll see, continue going on this path.
Well, I think you definitely are walking within your passion, girl. This is it. The blog, keep going. I absolutely love it. And where can we find the books? Are they all on the website?
Yes, you can head over to thoughtcard.com and there is a read books tab where you could find both of the books, or you could head over to Amazon and I'm sure you'll have the links in the show notes.
I absolutely will have them in the show notes. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
I think we covered everything. I just want to leave everybody with the thought of just setting your intentions. Really focusing on what you want in life, and then figuring out along the way has been what I've done in my life to figure out how to save for travel, figure out how to pay off debt, I figured out so many things. Because a lot of things they don't teach you in school. And sometimes our parents aren't equipped with the resources to show us. But I think if you have the intention and you know what you want, things will start to clear off and your path will start to emerge. So those are my parting words I would leave you with. Yeah, that's it for me.
You know what I forgot to ask you about? You actually paid off $63,000 worth of debt?
I did, yes.
Is that in the book?
I don't have a book yet about my student loan journey. It's definitely something that I'm thinking about. But if you head over to my blog, I do have under the finance section articles about student loans, how to calculate your interest rate, and how to actually some simple ways that you can pay it off faster. So I think my blog would be the best resource for those who want to pay off debt fast.
Right on. Danielle, I really enjoyed talking with you. We got to do this again.
Yes, thank you again. This was a pleasure. I had an absolute blast.
I did too.
Wow, that was really an awesome show. I really enjoyed talking with Danielle. She is a voice for podcasting. I totally love listening to her tips and advice on how we can get out here and travel. She is that travel bug. I'm trying to get that same bug. I'm really excited about taking my first trip out of the country. I know that we have COVID-19 going on, but you guys, believe you me, the tips that she left us were good. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to implement them in my life. Now's a good time for us to start planning for those trips that are out of the country. You have to start with getting your passport now. Start with getting that passport and then open up another account and you can start saving like Danielle suggested, that it makes so much sense to have it separate than the account that you're paying all of your bills out of. Start thinking, you guys. Where do you want to go? It has me thinking. I shared a few places during the show, but it really has me thinking. I'm ready to see the world. I'm ready. Are you ready? Get ready. It is doable. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Shantae with Authentic Talks. Traveling all fits in with self-care and your mind, body, and spirit.